Okay, everyone. Thanks for coming back for another episode. And I'm excited to have this conversation today with Sabrina. Sabrina is a holistic health coach, and she helps women who have a history of chronic yo-yo dieting heal their relationship with food, build a better body image, and generally improve their health in a sustainable, balanced, and compassionate way. Oh, that sounds so nice. Just before we recorded, we were having a quick conversation. I was telling Sabrina about my history as being a registered dietitian, and many of you who listen to this podcast know that that's what I did for about 10 years, and I got away from that because I felt it was too narrow, too rigid, too focused, too many rules and constraints, and I wanted to go broader. So we have Sabrina. Welcome, Sabrina. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited.
Yeah. So if we'll just hop right into it, tell us about your story and what led you to be doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I thought it was so cool to find out that you were a registered dietitian, and the reason why you moved away from the profession is actually the reason why I got into it, which was to help women from a holistic point of view, not just looking at the nutrition part of it as a dietitian or just the exercise part of it as a personal trainer. Because for me, I really do know that when it comes to making a big difference in your life, having a big impact, especially if you're someone who has struggled with your health your entire life, it goes so far beyond just giving someone a meal plan.
Oh.
It goes so far beyond giving someone an exercise routine, because when you've been struggling with it your entire life, your mindset is going to be the biggest thing that's going to affect how well you're able to make these changes and actually maintain them. And getting to the bottom of the identity that you've created for yourself, these deep-rooted habits that don't just break overnight, and what it takes to be consistent. Those are such different layers that most people don't even hit. And that's why so many women go through that same cycle of gaining and losing the same 20 pounds and going through the same cycle of starting a new habit and then falling out of it, because everything that they do is so temporary. It only hits the surface. And I wanted to go deeper and make a real transformation in people's lives.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Like you say, you keep losing and gaining the same 20 pounds because they're just focusing on the external things, the numbers and things like that. They're not really getting to the root of it all in their
Exactly.
beliefs. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think also, like you talked about creating a meal plan, I've done that many, many times. And the only time, when creating a meal plan would work is if you had the coaching, the extended long-term, accountability and coaching like that. I didn't often get into mindset, but definitely the accountability is a huge part because we know how hard it is to make the changes, right? And to keep them.
And not just the accountability, but the self, like the intrinsic motivation, because I always tell my clients on the very first call is my job is to work myself out of this job, meaning that my job is to make sure that you don't need me anymore by the end of our 90 days together. Because unlike the Weight Watchers or the Jenny Craig or whatever insert weight loss program you've tried, their job is to keep you hooked, to make you feel like you cannot do this on your own, which is why so many people, the second they stop counting their points, or they stop going to the meetings, or they stop following the meal plan, they feel like a failure because they think that they can't do this on their own. And so whenever I talk to women who tell me about the things that they've tried, they've done the Weight Watchers and the keto and the intermittent fasting, and they say, well, all those things worked, I just couldn't stick to it. I always try to reframe and ask themselves, well, what does working even mean for you? Because for me, when I think of something working, I think of something that's going to work for you for the rest of your life, something that's going to feel natural, something that's going to be maintainable. And if you're only able to maintain it when you're putting your life on hold and it feels like it's a full-time project, in my world, that's not something working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's such a good point that you make that a lot of those programs is to keep you hooked, right? So you need that motivation, the external motivation. And they, of course, they're businesses, right? They want they want to keep, the money coming in, which makes sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, for a coach like yourself, you wanted to work yourself out a job because you really want to make that difference. You really want to help them.
Exactly. And I want to give them the tools, the skills, and the mindsets that they need to not only make a change in their own life and be self-sustainable, but be able to do that for their kids or their family or inspire people around them. I've had so many of my clients who have said, like, now people at work are coming up to me and asking me about my lifestyle or my advice. And it's really cool to see it kind of that trickle down effect, because what I'm teaching my clients is something that a lot of people don't really get into because it's not super sexy. It's not the lose 20 pounds in 30 days. It's the stuff that goes deeper. We talk about mindsets and beliefs, and I know you talked about like manifesting and all that. And it really does go a layer deeper. And some people think it has nothing to do with health, but it all, like any change, starting a business, changing your health, getting in a relationship, it all comes down to what's going on in your head.
Exactly. Yeah. So what are the biggest shifts that you see people like? Are there like ahas, or what are the big things that you see coming up time and time again?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest thing, especially at the beginning of when I start working with a client, is them becoming aware of their thoughts and their beliefs. Because so many times we go about life on autopilot that we don't even pause for a second to ask ourselves, why am I getting these results in my life? Why do I keep doing these patterns or these habits? And being able to stop, and I have a process to bring awareness to those thoughts and those beliefs and those root causes of our eating habits, our exercise habits, our sleep patterns, whatever it is. It's those first 2 weeks of, oh my goodness, I never realized the reason why I, let's say, emotionally eat every night, or I never realized that the second I wake up, this is what I think about. And that sets you up for the entire day. And I never think about this thought that kind of plays on a loop inside my head. How not only do not only am I choosing to keep saying these things to myself, but because of that, it's causing me to self-sabotage. It's causing me to have this all or nothing mentality. And just bringing that awareness. I always say, like, every change starts with awareness. Bringing that awareness first. It's so simple, but most people don't even have that.
Yeah, that's what I always say too. The first step is always awareness, no matter what it is. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
really interesting. I guess because we're probably in this space for a while, we don't realize that anymore. That's what I find anyway. But
Mhm.
yeah, well, that's great. Um, so do you mind sharing a little bit about your story and what brought you to be doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as most business owners, we try to help the people that we used to be or that we wish that we had had early on. And so I myself struggled with disordered eating and body image issues and self-hatred pretty much for many years of my life. Went on my first diet when I was 16, and that was triggered because I had just stopped. I retired from synchronized swimming, which was a very body image focused sport. You are taught that you need to be small, you have to have long legs, you have to have skinny thighs. Like, you grow up with all of this messaging about what you should look like, how you should eat to look that way. And so when I was 16 and I came out of the sport, and now I'm no longer just eating to fuel my trainings. I'm eating and having to be in a world of food possibilities and workouts and overwhelm and information everywhere. And I was so terrified of gaining weight that I thought, okay, got to go on these diets, got to stop eating carbs, got to stop eating after 7 p.m. I did all of those classic fad diets that you can imagine. And just as most people do, I would do it for a couple of weeks, or I would do it from Monday through Friday. And then my willpower, which could do a whole other episode on willpower. But my willpower would run out. And then it was like a switch would turn on, and there was no gray. There was no in between. It was either I was eating super clean or I was completely off the rails and I was eating all of the foods and hating myself and feeling guilty and telling myself I was going to start again on Monday. And I really did think, because when you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook and you see all of these influencers who make you believe you have to eat perfectly, or you have to work out 7 days a week, or you have to stop eating sugar, I really believed that that's what it took to be healthy. And you get in your own head and you get influenced by diet culture and people around you everywhere. And so I struggled with that for at least 6 years of my life, until eventually, like through traveling and through being exposed to different cultures and through breaking that like identity of someone who needs to be perfect all the time, I realized that I can eat pizza and I can eat cake at my birthday and I can drink wine and still be healthy. And the best of all was that once I stopped trying to control and be perfect and try so hard to be that healthy person, my whole mindset part of it healed, because I didn't feel like I had to be all or nothing. I was no longer binging or emotionally eating or hating my body because I didn't feel deprived. I wasn't putting my life on hold to get to a certain body. I was just living my life, and to live a life that is going to be sustainable, you can't work out 7 days a week. You can't say no to cake at birthday parties. You can't say no to foods that you love for the rest of your life. That's just simply not possible or sustainable or very enjoyable.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I say. I share my story sometimes so when I was a dietitian, there was a time when I can't remember the reason why, but anyway, I went vegan and gluten-free. It lasted about 8 months. And I'd say I was like 98% following it. But then after, I guess I went home to visit family, and those food options weren't always around and things like that. So I slowly got out of it. But I always say it was because of my mental health that it just didn't work. Yeah, okay, if you live alone and if you don't want to follow that 100%, okay, it's easier that way. But then social gatherings with friends and family and going to restaurants, and it just became so difficult. And then this thing, saying no, depriving yourself of foods that you actually love and enjoy. Like, yeah, okay, it's healthy, maybe. I mean, I don't even want to say that word either, but look, what's your mental health saying, and your emotional health and well-being? It's the whole picture of everything together that's more important.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that so many women omit when they're deciding what new weight loss program they're going to do or what new diet they're going to do, is we are so about instant gratification. What is going to work now? What can I do right now that's going to make me feel like I'm quote unquote good or quote unquote healthy? And we don't actually think about the long term, because the long term is less sexy. It takes more patience. It takes more of what we do, which is getting into the mindset part. And no one thinks about the long term of, okay, what happens when I go to the restaurant, like you said, or I want to have the piece of cake? It's easy when you're always cooking at home. You have your own food, your own environment. You are maybe not going out as much. I know a lot of people feel like they kind of put their life on hold when they're trying to lose weight. But what happens when you hit your goal weight? What happens when you're done your diet? That's something that most people, what they'll say is, when I hit my goal weight, then I'll maintain it. Easy. Or then I'll be happy with no kind of plan or idea of how they're actually going to do that.
Yeah. And then that's when it can get more difficult again, right? You try to maintain, get a little more relaxed with what you've been doing for months. And that's probably mostly where most people start gaining the weight back, right?
Yeah. And you try to relax. And for example, let's take my favorite diet, which is the keto diet. Let's take people who do the keto diet and they tell themselves, well, I'm gradually going to start incorporating carbs. I've hit my goal weight. I'm gradually going to start incorporating carbs. But because you have been depriving yourself of them for so long, and I know that the more you deprive yourself of carbs, the more cravings you have for them, it's really hard to just slowly incorporate it back in because your body has been in such a restriction that it's not just one fry, it's not just one potato, it's not just one piece of bread. It becomes carb central, and we start thinking that we're out of control around food. And then that furthers confirms our thought that we can't be trusted around carbs. So let's go back on the keto diet. It's such a cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. So horrible. So when you start working with clients, do you talk about food at all, or do you get more into mindset?
Yeah, so we definitely talk about food, but I always say that your relationship with food is more important and impactful than any specific food that you eat. And so I specifically work with clients who have this tumultuous relationship with food where it is all or nothing, right? I can't just have the one cookie. If I have the one cookie, the entire box is gone. Or I'm good all day long, and then for some reason, I just binge at night. Or I'm good from Monday through Friday, and then for some reason, I can't control myself on the weekends. So I work with women to start changing that relationship with food, start changing their mindset around food, because as long as you see certain foods as good or bad, when you eat that bad food, you're going to have either that sense of guilt afterwards, and that can send you into a spiral of, I've already ruined my day, so might as well eat all of the foods, into a point where it doesn't even feel good physically anymore. You feel uncomfortable, your pants are tight, you're lethargic because you ate all of these foods, a lot of the times almost unintentionally, almost feeling like, well, got to eat all these foods now because I've already been bad. Tomorrow I'm going to be back on the wagon. And so, of course, we talk about food, but the very first step is changing our mindset around food, and also changing our mindset around ourselves, because I always say you won't never want to take care of something that you hate. You will never want to take care of your health, take care of your body, take care of yourself, like from a genuine place, if you feel like you have to punish yourself to get there, if you feel like you have to beat yourself up and have all of this negative self-talk. Whenever I start working with my clients the first few weeks, I can tell that they almost have like this PTSD from some of the programs or the coaches that they've had, who acted as this like dictator, who acted as this person who scolded them or got mad at them for eating a donut.
Oh, gosh.
And I do the opposite, right? Have that donut, have that cheesecake. Let's work through it. If you didn't have a positive experience doing it, what happened there? Instead of whipping you into shape, that's never going to work.
No. Wow. There was something that came up when you're talking, but it's gone again. I told you this happens. Anyway, in the email that you wrote me, you're talking about, you learn to listen to your body and work with it. That's something that I'm big on too, listen to your body, your emotions, everything that your body's telling you. So what were some of the things that when you started listening to your body, what was coming up for you?
So I for so long lived life off of these external rules of what I should or shouldn't be eating. What
That could be so much bigger when you said that, lived off external rules of what you should and should be doing, period, right? For
Yes.
everyone in every sense of it. But yeah, okay. Love that.
Yes.
Keep going.
And I have such a thing with the word should, because whenever I've got like friends or family who tell me their problems and like I should be doing this, I always stop them and I bring attention to that, because it's like, who said you should be doing that? Like, who made up this rule? Are you making it up for yourself and then beating yourself up because you're not following this self-imposed rule? And what's really cool about life is you can make your own rules. And if you're feeling bad about something, chances are you can change that rule. And same thing goes with eating. I was living off of all of these external rules of what people said you should or shouldn't do, right? So I call them food rules, but for example, white bread is terrible for you, and you should only eat whole wheat bread if you're allowing yourself to eat bread. And sometimes I wouldn't even eat bread. I used to make toast with sweet potatoes because I didn't allow myself to eat bread.
Oh, wow.
I thought pasta was going to make me fat, so I didn't eat it. I would do like no desserts every January, because my rule was that sugar was toxic and I had to detox from it. So I was living on all of these rules. And when I realized that these rules were, like I said, just self-imposed, and they didn't take into account how the food actually made me feel, when I actually started, okay, incorporating some more carbs into my diet, or allowing myself to have dessert, allowing myself to have all of the foods that I have been restricting, I started realizing which foods made me feel good and which foods didn't. And that when I ate more carbs, I actually had more energy, more stamina, and I didn't balloon up like I thought that I would, because carbs are necessary. When I started breaking some of the rules, for example, like I realized that fried food makes me feel really sick. And it's not because of what other people are telling me that I shouldn't eat fried food, but because my body was saying, hey, we don't love how we feel when we eat that. And so now I know that I could have fried food. I could have fries and calamari when I go to the restaurant. I absolutely could. That rule is not there anymore. But do I want to? Based on how I'm going to feel after, do I want to? And with permission you get choice. And now I have the choice, and I feel like I'm working with my body saying, okay, I'm going to give you things that are going to make you feel good. But also, if I have a small dessert, I feel great. I don't feel lethargic. If I have the entire cake, I definitely don't feel good. But I know that I can have a slice and feel good. And so every day when you feel like you're working with your body instead of punishing it and starving it and really sending it down a spiral, it changes your day-to-day like quality of life, quality of your happiness, of your health. It changes everything when you learn to listen to your body.
Yeah, love that. So question for you. When someone knows that eating something is going to make them feel gross or lethargic or just, but they do it anyway, do you think it's because they still have, wanting to punish themselves, or there's something still negative going there?
So there's so many things that could be happening there, because, for example, I sometimes know these fries are not going to make me feel good, but I really encourage my clients and I take them through a process of we are so, like I said before, we are so automatic to make those decisions. If the food is around, we just go for it. And when you actually become intentional about your food choices, for example, when I see fries, I go through that mental process of, okay, if I'm choosing to have these, I know there's a chance I'm not going to feel good. what am I choosing? And there are going to be some times where I'm like, I really want these fries. And I know if I don't have any, I'm going to feel deprived and I'm going to end up binging a week from now. So doing that kind of pros and cons, and sometimes you do decide to have a food that's not going to make you feel good. I would say that happens maybe 10% of the time that I do end up going for those foods.
Okay.
Because when you actually cultivate this mindset of self-awareness and self-love, and when you actually really do care about your body and you love it regardless of what it looks like, regardless of the weight or whatever, then you're able to make those decisions not from a place of self-sabotage, of like trying to feel worse about a decision you've made, but really just from a place of I've got my pros and cons here, and I'm making a decision from intention instead of from self-hatred.
Okay. I understand. So you would have your clients walk through that quick mental process before choosing to eat anything?
Yeah, and that is something that I have to coach a lot of my clients through, is because I think that coaching is so important, because there are going to be those instances where they send me a message, okay, this is the situation, right? I want to eat this. I'm going out to the restaurant, whatever it is. How do I handle this situation? How do I listen to my body? How do I make a decision that's going to make me feel good, that's not going to send me in this spiral of self-sabotage? Our brains are so smart, but they can really come in the way of our goals.
Yeah. So, I love all this, kind of, I don't know if you would consider it intuitive eating or kind of, or whatever, but, I love all of that. It's something that comes to my mind. I think I still have a bit of disordered eating problems, or, like in my brain, because I've kind of gone through from a place. I was never formally diagnosed of orthorexic. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, orthorexia.
I actually went through orthorexia myself, so I definitely know.
Yeah, so I think I was there. I just read briefly about it, and I think I was there, but like I said, I was never formally diagnosed or anything. But so then I feel like I'm on the complete opposite end of the spectrum now for a few years, just like whatever, because I'm not talking nutrition all day every day like I do with my old clients, right? So now it's just, so I found when I was doing nutrition consults with everyone all the time, the food groups, blah 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 blah, all that, anyway, I don't want to say nonsense, but I was doing it myself. But since I've been out of it for several years, I'm not as into it. So I feel like I'm on the complete other opposite end of the spectrum, just eating whatever I want whenever I want it, which in a way it's good. But then how does one reconcile intuitive eating, or maybe I'm not quite practicing intuitive eating, but kind of no restriction versus being at a weight that you're comfortable with, or you just have to try to let go of the weight completely?
I love that question. So yes, I do teach intuitive eating to my clients. That is the premise of a lot of the work that I do. And intuitive eating is just letting go of that desire to lose weight and focusing on your health, improving your health. And I love that you were asking, because this is a common question that a lot of people think is, when I let go of these restrictions, when I let go of these rules, I'm just going to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, without a care in the world. And that's because they're missing the component. And this is like within the first 2 weeks of the work that we do, is the component of reconnecting to your body. Because if you don't reconnect and learn to trust and listen to your body again, then yeah, you could eat the pizza and the pasta and the ice cream all day long, but your body is going to be sending you signals of, I don't feel so good. I personally know I don't have any restrictions. I could eat any foods, all foods, whenever I want. But if I were to do that, I would have a really hard time doing my job and moving my body and being motivated, because my body wouldn't handle that kind of food very well. And so when you learn to really listen to your body, sure, you could eat all those foods, but your body's going to be asking you for different things. A lot of my clients, what they notice is that, oh my God, I'm noticing now that I actually crave fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
I actually crave these healthy things, not because I feel like I have to, like in the past, based on these food rules, but because I know how to listen and trust my body now. And that's what it's asking me for. And that is awesome. And maybe you're going to crave a piece of pie later. And in the end, in the grand scheme of things, most of the things you're going to eat are going to be health promoting. They're going to be nutritious. And then there are going to be those play foods that are meant to be in a balanced and sustainable and enjoyable lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. So I say I crave freshness, whether it's cucumbers or tomatoes or something. I do crave freshness. So that's good. So then do you just kind of have to forget about the weight altogether?
Yeah. So I actually, within my first consultation, I say, we're not going to weigh ourselves, right? I really don't care about what your weight is, because the fact of the matter is I have no control over what your body does. You have no control over what your body does. And a really important question that everyone needs to ask themselves is, okay, if I were to focus on health promoting behaviors, so eating better or sleeping better or moving my body or managing my stress, like all those things that I focus on with my clients, if I were to focus on changing my lifestyle and changing my mindset, and the weight didn't even go down, would you feel like it was for nothing? Is it really about, because a lot of people think that they want to lose weight because they want to be healthy. Is it really about the health?
That's a really good question. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because if you were to change your lifestyle and change the way that you eat and change your relationship with food and bring more joy into your life, and you didn't lose any weight, then what? Would you rather lose weight and be miserable and give up your life and give up your social life and your happiness? Or would you rather be healthy? And then if your weight is meant to go down, it's going to go down by improving your health. Because a lot of these diets out there, they're not about health. They are not about making you healthier. They're about making you eat less than you need to. They're about making you eat, like starve yourself for long periods of time. They're not about health. And if anything, it's been shown, I'm sure you know, as a dietitian, it's been shown that diets actually wreak havoc on your body. They wreak havoc on your metabolism. They wreak havoc on your psychological health. There's nothing healthy about it.
No, it's basically just set up for you to get yourself to fit into what's socially acceptable as a human body, right? I know, I'm happy we're starting to slowly kind of get away from that, but it's still there, you know, undertones and everything and all of the media. Anyway, so behavior change. I know maybe it's a big topic, but anything different that you, other than what we've talked about so far, and changing behaviors? What's your process, or how would you recommend somebody get started with that?
Okay, so changing behaviors, I would say, it's so not sexy, but be patient and give it time and start incredibly small. Because I just started working with a client who has for years now wanted to implement a routine of just walking every day. And she never did it because she created this whole story in her head of, okay, well, I used to walk an hour every day. So if I'm going to start this routine again, I'm going to walk an hour every day. And you start like finding all of these reasons, these excuses why it's not going to work. And we're like so scared of failure. And so we just don't start it at all. And I heard this I love this quote today. People want to be great at something, but they're not willing to be good. They're not willing to be bad. So they're not willing to start. Because in order to actually get great at something, you need to do something. Regardless of if it's small or big, you need to do something. And so I do that with my clients and I worked, for example, with this walking client. Instead of starting by having this goal of walking an hour. How about this week? You just put your running shoes on and step outside the door. You don't even have to walk. You literally just have to put your running shoes on and step outside the door. And so it's about starting with creating this new pattern, creating this new identity for yourself as I am someone who, regardless of if it's raining outside, if it's snowing outside, if it's freezing, at least I put my running shoes on and I stepped outside the door. And that was all I wanted. And within our first week, she got back to me and she said, I am mind blown because not only did I do it every day, but I went for a 20-minute walk every single day. And so it's about, and I have a 10-step process of how to build a habit. But most people just think that to make big changes in your life, you need to make these crazy changes to your lifestyle. And those fall apart when life gets stressful, when you don't have time. And so starting so small and then building on that, not super sexy, but the most effective.
Yeah, I love that. And I can so relate to that client. Because what I think the most difficult part of actually going for a walk is getting up and going outside. Once you're standing up and you're outside with your runners on, whatever, it's fine. But it's just to get up and go, right?
Yeah.
So you built that as the first step. That's genius.
Yeah. And like, for example, I implemented this with myself. I was moving a couple of months ago and I knew moving, like packing everything up was going to be just a hassle and a half. And I was putting it off, building it up in my head. And then finally one day I decided today I'm just going to take out a box. I'm not even going to start packing. I'm going to take out a box. And then every single day, I'm going to spend 5 minutes putting stuff in boxes. And just taking out the box, I ended up packing for 30 minutes on my first day. And then every single day, I would pack for 10, 15 minutes. And so instead of finding myself on 2 days before moving, having to pack my entire house, I had done it so progressively. And it started with me taking out a box, and that was it.
I love it. So you ever hear that, everyone? Start so small, start super small, like just the little pre-action, I guess, before actually doing the thing. And that makes so much sense. I love it. Love it. Love it. I think that's one of the big takeaways. There's many takeaways from the show, I think, but this is one big one for me anyway, personally.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Great. So is there anything else that you'd like to share, Sabrina, before we go?
Honestly, no. I would just say that if there's anyone who is listening who can relate to having this tumultuous relationship with food or struggling to make these changes consistent and maintainable, and they maybe feel hopeless and I know this is getting released in January. We're thinking about the next diet. We're thinking about what can I do now? Instead, shifting it to let's look at the long-term implications here, and let's look at a long-term game plan of how can I change my lifestyle so that 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, I'm still doing it and I'm teaching it to my kids and I'm teaching it to people around me, instead of what can I do in the next 3 months that's going to make me feel better, and then just always falling back to those old habits. Like really looking at it in the long term, picture yourself 20 years from now. What kind of life do you want to be living? That's what's important.
I love that. Yeah, that really hit it home. Earlier you mentioned instant gratification, but we want the results now or yesterday, right? We don't want to really think about the long term, but so true. So true. So where can people find you if they want to connect with you online?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, which is Sabrina Magnan, Magnan.com. I also offer for anyone who wants kind of a roadmap of how do I get started. I see where I am now and I see where I want to be, but it's overwhelming and it's confusing and I don't know even where to start. I do offer a personalized health audit. So if you want to get on the call personally with me, and I will listen to what you've been through, what you've tried, and I can tell you what's not working, and give you that plan so you can get from point A to point B easily, quickly, effortlessly. So they can go to sabrinamagnan.com/audit, and audit, which is AUDIT, and book a time in my calendar, and we'll talk, and we'll definitely get you clarity on where to go from here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sabrina.
Thank you so much for having me.